Hi, thank you so much for joining us for this session on Microsoft 365 Business Under the Hood. My name is Ashanka Idia, and I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager for Microsoft 365 Business. Today, I'm very excited to talk to you about what Microsoft 365 Business is and how you can deploy Microsoft 365 Business. Before we get started, I thought it would be very useful for us to talk about the vision of Microsoft 365 Business and what we see for our small and medium business customers. What we see in the marketplace for SMB customers is there's the plethora of SaaS apps being used. We're seeing our customers move from traditional on-premise applications and embracing SaaS application. And what this does is now it makes your security posture insecure because now you have a lot of data residing in SaaS applications. Apart from SaaS applications, we're also seeing a lot of personal devices being used at the workplace among our SMB customers. In fact, we have a data point that says 71% of SMBs use personal devices to access company-owned data. And again, what we're seeing is you have a lot of data residing in these personal devices, which makes the security posture hard. So the most important thing for M365 Business is protection of data for our SMB customers. And given that we have our SMB customers using SaaS applications, using personal devices, one of the biggest challenges among our SMB customers is managing this data given all of these devices and apps being used. And that's really one of the core goals of Microsoft 365 Business, is protecting your data wherever it's on the move. And if you look at how hard it is to actually increase the security of your small business, there's a lot of things that our small business customers have to do to manage security. You have to, first of all, make sure you're running the latest version of everything. You have to make sure you have the latest antivirus or anti-malware solution. You have to have a strong password and change it regularly. As you can see, there are many steps that you may have to manually do. And taking these steps manually is hard and not easy. It takes a lot of effort. And what we've learned from our SMB customers is a lot of them want to spend the time running their business because that's what they care about. And this is security is something that needs to happen in the background. And so given that, we have the challenge in SMBs. This is what is primarily the challenge among our SMB customers, is we have a lot of SMB customers using legacy infrastructure. So we see a lot of old versions of Windows. We see a lot of old versions of Office client or even email being used, Exchange 2007, for example. And then we have this newer trend of SaaS applications being used and personal devices being used. And if you sort of look at all of this, it's managing security in this environment where there's legacy infrastructure, unauthorized SaaS apps, for example, or personal devices. Managing security in this environment becomes really hard. And one of the goals of Microsoft 365 Business is to make management of SMB IT really simple. And the big vision of Microsoft 365 Business is to have one subscription that sort of gives you the latest version of Windows, keeps your Office up to date. You have cloud services that help you enable your productivity, and all of this is centrally managed. So the whole vision of Microsoft 365 Business is to be that one standard subscription that provides a greater security posture, but also helps you manage your infrastructure with the least hassle possible. And that's really the goal of Microsoft 365 Business, is we wanted to provide a holistic subscription that helps your customers get more done. It gives you the best productivity capabilities to help you work better together. We also have specific apps that help you build your business. And all of this is overlaid by security features that help you safeguard your data. And the vision of all of this is it should not be hard to enable or manage, and the entire deployment process has been simplified for you. So let's go into a little more detail of what exactly you get with Microsoft 365 Business. Our goal with Microsoft 365 Business was to give you give you a holistic solution that not only gives you the best collaboration and productivity tools for you to grow your business, but also security capabilities to protect your data wherever it is in transit. And so with Microsoft 365 Business, our goal is for SMB customers to securely run and grow their business. And just briefly going through what each of these pillars mean, with Get More Done, you get the latest Office applications where you get the latest and greatest Office. And a lot of times you have customers asking, why should I be on the latest version of Office? The latest version of Office gives you access to intelligent capabilities. For example, PowerPoint has this feature called Designer, which automatically recommends slide designs for you based on the content. And what this means is the artificial intelligence capabilities in Office that is there in the latest Office helps you get your work done faster and saves you a lot of time. And of course, it is a more secure Office possible as well. And then you also get collaboration capabilities in Teams, where you can work better together with your customers, with your suppliers, with your vendors. And Teams really brings all of those resources into a single place, where you don't have to keep track of, where when you're working in a group, it really becomes challenging in the fact that different people in a group will start exchanging emails or documents, and it's really hard to keep track of. Teams brings all of that together in a single workplace. And we also have specific apps that help you build and grow your business and help you maintain customer relations, for example, or plan work processes. And then in terms of security, we'll talk more about that in the session, but we've included a lot of new features, and we're excited to talk about the new security features in Microsoft 365 Business. But our goal with security is to help you make it simple to enable, but also something that doesn't come in the way of productivity, because what we've learned is productivity has to be seamless, and when you enable security features, if they come in the way, your employees will go around it. And so in terms of security features, our vision was to give you the most secure capabilities possible, but also make sure that they work in the background so it's not coming in the way. And so we'll talk more about security capabilities of Microsoft 365 Business. And of course, the core principle of Microsoft 365 Business is we want these solutions to just work for you. If you have amazing capabilities, but you're unable to take the value of them faster because it's too complex, that means it's not working for you. And so what we've done is spent a lot of time simplifying the enablement of these capabilities, so you can just quickly enable these capabilities and get going and realize the value of your subscription faster. And so we briefly wanted to talk about what are some of the new capabilities we've announced in Microsoft 365 Business. Microsoft 365 Business is our ideal product for SMB customers because we believe it meets the IT needs of most SMB customers, because it goes beyond just collaboration and productivity. It also gives you security capabilities. It helps you stay on the latest and greatest version of Windows by offering you a free upgrade from previous Pro versions to Windows 10 Pro. You have the ability to manage your Windows devices from a central console. You can manage non-Windows devices with Microsoft 365 Business, including iOS and Android, through the availability of Intune. And we also want to talk about some of the security capabilities we have enabled. We've enabled security capabilities to deal with external threats like Office 365 ATP and Windows Exploit Guard. But we also have capabilities to help you safeguard your data. So you get data loss prevention capabilities in Microsoft 365 Business, and you get Azure Information Protection as well. Azure Information Protection helps you put rights management capabilities and permissions on your data, like, for example, do not forward, do not copy. It also helps you encrypt outgoing messages as well. So you get all of those Azure Information Protection capabilities. Plus, you get the ability to classify and label data as well. You also get Intune app protection, which helps you put restrictions on cut, copy, paste on mobile devices as well when you're using the Office app. So you get in full Intune capabilities as well. Data loss prevention capabilities help you prevent sensitive information from leaving the organization. So what it does is it does deep content analysis and looks for patterns such as credit card information or bank routing numbers or PHI routing numbers, and help prevent the transmission of the sensitive information outside. And then you also get litigation hold and compliance capabilities where you can enable archiving, you can enable litigation hold, you can do e-discovery as well. As you can see, our vision with Microsoft 365 Business, with the addition of new capabilities, it is designed to be a single subscription that meets most of your IT needs, not just looking at productivity and capabilities, but going beyond that in terms of managing your devices and giving you IT capabilities to keep your business secure. So let's go deeper into what Microsoft 365 Business does as far as security is concerned. Keeping security acting as guardrails so it's only there when you need it is a very important philosophy for us when designing Microsoft 365 Business, because we understand productivity is paramount, but you also need the very best security given the environment that we live in, where there are a lot of external threats. In fact, we ran a recent survey where we identified that 71% of our SMB customers feel very vulnerable to external cyber attacks. So given the environment we're in, we've designed Microsoft 365 Business to really give you a layered approach to security and make it seamless so you can focus on the productivity while the system takes care of security for you. And in terms of safeguarding your data, we are looking at security at 3 levels. Protection from external threats. What are the different systems that you can enable in Microsoft 365 Business to help protect you from external threats? Then there is keeping your data safe from data leaks that could happen to unintentional employees sending sensitive information that they should not be sending. So we have a lot of safeguards on how to protect data while it is in transmission, while it is sitting in different applications, and also how you can control data access better, making sure that you can apply restrictions so only the right people can have access to the data, so you can set all of those permissions. So let's go deeper into how Microsoft 365 Business helps safeguard your data. So in terms of protection from external threats, we talked about the new addition to Microsoft 365 Business that we're making. One of the things that we're excited is making the availability of Office 365 ATP available in Microsoft 365 Business. What Advanced Threat Protection, or ATP, does, it does 2 things. First, it checks links in real time and gives you what we call time-of-click protection. So what happens is if you have any link that is sent through email or in a document, and instead of manually checking it, when you click on it, what we do is we prevent you, or the system, Advanced Threat Protection, prevents you from accessing malicious links. So we understand it's very difficult to, while training is always good, it's really difficult to expect every employee to really check for every link that they're clicking on. And the times that we live in, these links have gotten very sophisticated as well. So even if you're ultra careful and manually check every link, it's not guaranteed that the backend website is not malicious or it's not injecting suspicious code. And really that's where Advanced Threat Protection comes in, is it protects the user from clicking on to a website that has malicious intent. And what the system does is we check at the backend for the website that's being referenced to see if there's any code injection happening, if there's any server in between, or if there's anything suspicious happening in the back end. And so when the user clicks on it, we act as Advanced Threat Protection acts as a line of defense to prevent the user from clicking onto a malicious site. The other thing that Advanced Threat Protection does is also scans attachments. Every attachment coming in is analyzed in a virtual sandbox, where it is analyzed for behavior and intent to see if an attachment is behaving suspiciously, if it is doing a registry call, if it is doing things that a regular attachment wouldn't be doing. And that's where artificial intelligence is enabled to make the call on whether an attachment is suspicious or not. And this is where ATP, the infrastructure enabled for ATP is enormous in the sense that every attachment that is coming in is scanned. And so what customers are getting is really the latest and greatest sophisticated tools to prevent them from really advanced malicious content because of the tests that we are running to prevent all of this malicious content from coming into the system. Also, we have Windows Exploit Guard enabled in Microsoft 365 Business, where you can prevent your Windows device from accessing ransomware content. And what it does is it reduces the attack surface, and so it kicks in even before your antivirus comes into place. And so Windows Exploit Guard is a great endpoint level protection to prevent against malicious content like ransomware. And so together with Advanced Protection and Windows Exploit Guard, you're getting a combination of protection to really safeguard your business and your data from sophisticated threats that are becoming more sophisticated every day, and you have a system that's not just keeping up with it, but also advancing beyond it to help you protect against that. In terms of safeguarding your data, like we mentioned, we have a number of systems that you can enable, like data loss prevention policies that help you prevent sensitive information from leaking out. You can also enable BitLocker device encryption if you need to prevent, in the case if a device is lost or stolen. And so BitLocker encryption means that if a device is stolen or lost, your data will not fall into the wrong hands. And so you can also easily enable BitLocker encryption to protect your data. And then in order to protect your data end-to-end across all of your devices, you have the ability to enable full-featured Intune management, where it really protects your devices and data, regardless of what the device is, whether it's Mac or Windows or Android or iOS devices as well. In order for controlling data access, you can also put a lot of restrictions. We talked about how you can put restrictions on email, like do not forward or encrypt. But you can also mandate PIN policies on mobile devices. So when somebody is logging in on their mobile device, for example, to access company data, you can mandate PIN policy or fingerprint. So for example, if you don't want your if employees are using their personal devices, and sometimes, kids access these personal devices, or it could be lost. You want to enable safeguards so you can put a PIN policy easily. One of the key capabilities that a lot of our customers are very excited about is the ability to remotely wipe business data without affecting personal information. So you can do a selective wipe as well, very easily, where if an employee leaves or if somebody's device is lost, you can wipe all corporate data out of it without touching their personal devices. And so as you can see, we have incorporated Microsoft 365 Business with a lot of sophisticated enterprise features, right from giving you the latest and greatest tools to prevent you from cyber attacks and ransomware attacks, to giving you safeguards to protect your sensitive information, like data loss prevention capabilities and BitLocker encryption capabilities for your devices. And now you also have a lot of controls to make sure the data, the right people access the data, or more importantly, when people leave the organization and they should not have access to data, you can restrict access to data that way as well. And so the goal of Microsoft 365 Business is to give you the best productivity and collaboration experiences, but also the best enterprise level security safeguards to safeguard your data. Like I said, we want to give you all of these capabilities, but we also want to make it easier for you to enable. And so one of the core principles of Microsoft 365 Business is to make the enablement of these technologies easier for you. And Microsoft 365 Business is unique in the sense that it has a unique administration center that is designed to help make it easier for you to enable all aspects of the service. So it's not just Office 365 capabilities, but also device management capabilities. And one of the things that I got excited when I was looking at Microsoft 365 Business as it was developing is how simple we've made enablement of these data protection and device management capabilities. What would take hours in sort of going into the Intune console and configuring it has now been reduced to just toggle buttons like you see here. For example, this is a screenshot of the Microsoft 365 Business Administration Center, where you can see the Windows 10 device configuration, and you can see you have various toggle buttons to help you manage your Windows 10 Pro device from the central portal, and that is the Microsoft 365 Business Administration Center. And so, as you can see here, just by setting these toggles, you can essentially enable security policies for your Windows devices. And previously, for Pro devices, there was no management, so your users could go in and really turn off antivirus if they wanted to, or they could download any apps, and there was really no way to manage a Pro device previously. But what Microsoft 365 Business is designed to do is help you as a business owner or your partner from managing and putting up security policies centrally that cannot be turned off. So for example, in the set of options, when you see secure Windows 10 devices, you can enable the toggle on or off. And so for example, if you want to enable the Windows Defender for all of your devices, which we highly recommend, when you enable it on, your end user cannot turn it off on their device, because now this is essentially enforced policy. And as you can see, you have many options that way where you can enable on. And so with a single toggle button, you have now enabled centrally enforced policies. And so there are two aspects to this. One is now you get centralized management that previously would be a bit complex to enable. So we've simplified central management of devices and enablement of security policies. But the other aspect of this is this used to be pretty complex to enable. You'd have to know aspects of device management. You'd have to go into separate portals if you wanted to. But our goal with Microsoft 365 Business is to simplify all of the most important controls that you need, give you the best defaults, and so you don't have to worry about enforcing security policies. It just giving you easy control so you can enable all of this easily so you can realize the value and benefits of these security capabilities faster. And so similarly, we have a lot of toggles for protecting your work files and mobile devices. And again, one of the things I've worked on the Intune portal previously, and if you want to go and enable all of this on the Intune portal, especially protection of work files, it's about, I would say, 10 clicks to get there. But Microsoft 365 Business, we have reduced the complexity to a single toggle button. And that's really like the magic of the engineering involved in this. And that's really where we plan to go further on, is to help simplify the enablement of all of these security capabilities. So whether you're a partner or a customer, you can take advantage of this faster. So let's go a little bit into the deployment of Microsoft 365 Business and how do you deploy Microsoft 365 Business, given that we have a lot of components in terms of identity, Windows management, and Office as well. So quickly, one of the questions, we spend a lot of time talking about Microsoft 365 Business, but we want to talk about what it is not. And so quickly, we get a lot of questions on Microsoft 365 Business, and we want to highlight some questions that we get and take out some misconceptions of M365 Business. One of the most common questions that we get for M365 Business is, does it include Windows? Well, the answer is it includes an upgrade from Windows 7 Pro, 8 Pro to Windows 10 Pro, but it's a bit complicated in the sense that you don't get a Windows entitlement. You don't get a product key. What you get with Microsoft 365 Business is you get Windows management, ability to centrally manage Windows Pro devices that you previously couldn't. So you get Windows management, and you get the benefits of centralized management, like enforcing device policies or security policies. It also includes a free upgrade from previous Pro versions. So if you already have a Pro device that's on Windows 7 or 8 Pro or 8.1 Pro, you get the upgrade to Windows 10 Pro. But when you buy Microsoft 365 Business, you're not getting a license key. You don't get a licensing entitlement. What you get is upgrade benefits and management benefits. The second question that we get is, does it include EMS? And one of the things is, with Microsoft 365 Business, we're curating the security features or management features that our customers need. So Microsoft 365 Business has a unique level of features that could be that we do have a few features from EMS and other aspects of our technology stack, but it does not include full EMS. And so one of the things to be aware of is not to think that when you buy Microsoft 365 Business, you're getting full EMS. You may have capabilities from EMS like Intune and Azure Information Protection, but that does not mean you get full EMS. With Microsoft 365 Business, our goal is to curate the right level of features for our SMB customers and tailor Microsoft 365 Business as a full-fledged solution for SMB customers. So it does not have licensing entitlements for EMS. And then we have a question that we get, do I have to migrate from Office 365 when you enable Microsoft 365 Business? And the answer is no, you don't have to migrate. Microsoft 365 Business runs on the same base as Office 365. So if you're currently using Office 365 Business Premium or E3 and you want to switch to Microsoft 365 Business, there's no migration of data involved. All you have to do is switch the backend licenses and account for differences in features that way, but there is no migration of data needed unless, of course, you're migrating from a third-party email system. So if you're just going from Microsoft Office 365 to Microsoft 365 Business, there is no migration of data needed. And so here's a quick deployment overview on what are the steps you would take to deploy Microsoft 365 Business. In terms of as an admin, the steps that you can take is, you can go through the motion of setting Microsoft 365 Business similar to Office 365 if you're familiar with. So you can set up DNS and configure your users, and then assign licenses to your users. If you have on-premises assets, previously we had said Microsoft 365 Business, you can now use AAD Connect with Microsoft 365 Business. And because you have Windows PC management that is happening through device management in Intune, for accessing on-premises resources, you might want to consider something known as hybrid Azure AD joint devices capability. We will talk more about it. And then you will migrate user email if you're not using Office 365. And so in terms of admin policies, the things that you would do is you would set up DNS, you would configure users, you would assign the licenses, you would enable AAD Connect if you're looking at on-premises assets. You will enable hybrid Azure AD configuration, and we'll talk more about that. And then you can set policies using the centralized console. In terms of the user PC, upgrade to Windows 10 Pro creators upgrade is really important. The minimum requirement for Windows PC has to be Windows 10 Pro. So like I said, if you have previous versions of Pro, you will use the enablement or the upgrade benefits that you have with your Microsoft 365 Business subscription to upgrade older versions to Windows 10 Pro. And then once all of your devices are on Windows 10 Pro, you will do what is known as Azure Active Directory join. And you do that by signing in with your credentials, which is your username and password. And once you sign in with your username and password, what happens is it joins Azure Active Directory, and then the Windows 10 is elevated to Windows 10 Business. And what Windows 10 Business means is now it is under centralized management. So the previous console that I showed you, where you can set up devices and security policy, where you can set up, you can put the toggle buttons for securing your Windows device. Those policies are now flowing over into the Windows device. And so that's what signing in and that's what Windows 10 Business Elevation means, is now the device is under centralized management. And once the elevation is done, you can install other apps, and you can install Office and Teams and set it up for your end user. As far as your mobile device is concerned, again, your user could download and set up Outlook. You can download the company portal if you wanted to, and you can download Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Office 365 apps that are available that you can install on your user's mobile device. So let's talk about what an Azure AD join device is. And here we talked about what a Windows 10 Pro device joining into Azure Active Directory does. And so once you have a Windows 10 Pro device and you sign in with your Azure AD credentials or your org credentials, or generally the username or password that you get with Microsoft 365 Business, it signs into Azure Active Directory, and then Azure Active Directory will invoke your Intune policies, and Intune will now manage your Windows 10 Pro device. And this elevation, this management, this centralized management of Intune is essentially what we call Windows 10 Business, because now Intune has given a set of centralized management policies that is managing this device now. So your end user can go and they cannot go and remove some of the security capabilities. This device is now centrally managed. And that's really the Windows 10 Business entitlement that you're getting with M365 Business, is the centralized management capabilities that was previously not there for your Windows 10 Pro device. And so what this does is, once your device is joined to Azure Active Directory and is now being centralized managed by Microsoft 365 Business, what it does is enables what we call a cloud-only scenario. So, you can access SaaS application and cloud-based assets for file sharing, like OneDrive for Business, and one of the things to consider when you're moving to this configuration is, if you have a current profile being used, know that when you do the join to Azure Active Directory, it creates another profile, and so it doesn't migrate. It doesn't automatically migrate things from previous profile. It is on the roadmap that we're looking into, but currently you'll have to use a manual tool to migrate the profile. So one of the things to consider is, as your current Windows 10 Pro device, if it has an existing profile and you're joining it into Azure Active Directory by signing in with your credential, it will create a new profile, and this profile will not, the old profile will not manually migrate, so you have to cut, copy, and paste. And then joining it into Azure Active Directory and enforcing management through Intune could also mean that some of the if you're using GPOs, may not map. So it would be good for you to run what we call the mmap tool that really maps into GPOs into the Intune console. And so you could look at that. You may need to look at that as well. And accessing on-premises assets in this configuration will be hard, because there is no access to on-premises resources with this. So consider this configuration for those customers that are looking to be cloud only or cloud first, because this kind of configuration, where it is joined to Azure Active Directory and managed by Intune, may not be suitable for customers that have on-premises assets or line of business applications that rely on an on-premises DC. This is the configuration that we recommend for customers right now with on-premises assets that need to be accessed. So this technology is called Hybrid Azure AD Join Device, and what it does is it enables your Windows 10 Pro device, if you have an on-premise Active Directory and you're using it to access line of business applications or file shares or printers, any of that, and there's already an existing asset base in terms of using on-premises access, and you're using your Active Directory heavily. And in these settings, you want to introduce Microsoft 365 Business Managed Devices. This is the configuration that you would use. It is called Hybrid Azure AD Join Device. And what it does is, the device here is joined both to Azure Active Directory and your local AD. So what this means is your device gets the benefit of centralized management that is coming in through Intune, but your device also has access to on-premises resources that your customers are used to, like line of business applications or file shares or printers. And in order to enable this, you do have to say that you do have to go through steps in order to do this. And so for that, you would need to first enable the Azure Active Directory Connect tool to make sure that the identities are synced, and make sure you're the latest version of Azure Active Directory Connect as well. You definitely want to make sure that the Azure Active Directory Connect tool is enabled because it's important. This is what provides you the connection with your on-premises assets. Then you would run PowerShell commandlets on your domain controller, which is your Active Directory, and then you would create 2 GPOs. We will go into details for it, but that's really some of the steps that you would take. But really, the configuration from what we want to take away from this slide is this slide sort of enables you to get the best of Intune management over your device. So you get centralized management, you get the ability to manage all of these pro devices essentially, but you also have the ability to now access line of business applications, printers, and file shares with this configuration. And so here's some of the steps that you would take to hybrid Azure AD join. I want to make sure everybody understands this is a configuration that requires a lot of thought, and it could be considered complex. So please make sure you go through the detailed documentation. The detailed documentation is at aka.ms hybrid AADJ. That is aka.ms /hybrid AADJ. And really what you're looking at is creating the following steps. The first is you would install and configure AD Connect. And what this does is it creates a sync and syncs identities between on-prem AD and your Azure Active Directory. Then you would run a PowerShell commandlet on your domain controller, which is your on-premise AD. And what this does is tells AD Connect to allow the computer objects to sync between on-premise domain controller and Active Directory. The next step is you would run two GPOs. The first GPO is to do what we call as a workplace join. It allows domain join Windows 10 devices to register itself with Azure Active Directory. And this puts it in a hybrid Azure Active Directory joined device mode. And so the first GPO, what it does is it allows your Windows 10 device to register itself with AD, and this is a manual process. You would have to run this GPO, and then you would run a second GPO. And what this second GPO does, it allows the Windows 10 device to enroll into Intune for management. And so you have to run both of the GPOs, and and we have just simplified the steps here. There's a lot of additional details that you would want to look at, and again, please refer to this documentation on aka.ms hybrid AADJ. We also want to go into details on the Windows deployment. And again, we want to talk about the Windows benefit or the Windows value that you're getting is you're now getting really pre-configured and automatically deployed security features and management capabilities that you previously did not have with Pro devices. And so we're bringing those capabilities because we understand that security and management capabilities are necessary to protect our small businesses. And you're getting these management capabilities. You also get autopilot capabilities where if you're refreshing a lot of devices and you're getting in new devices, it really becomes hard to then, image this and then provide it to the employee. It takes a lot of effort. And so with Windows Autopilot, you can just get your device up and running very quickly, and so your employee can start using it. And so Windows Autopilot makes it really seamless for you to sort of put your device policies on a new and refreshed device. And of course, the Windows value that you get in Microsoft 365 Business is you get in-place upgrade to Windows 10 Pro if you're on 7 or 8.1 Pro previously. And so here are the prerequisites for using Microsoft 365 Business on the device side. For mobile devices is Windows 7 Pro, 8 Pro, and 8.1 Pro. So Pro is a minimum requirement. Of course, if you're on previous versions of Pro, you can use the in-place upgrade to get to Windows 10 Pro. But in order to do Azure AD Join, it has to be on Windows 10 Pro. So you have to get your device to Windows 10 Pro. And on your mobile devices, it should be 8.0 or later for iOS and 4.0 and later for Android. And before you enable mobile devices, if there's a previous MDM solution that is managing the device, your mobile device has to be unenrolled from that. So remove any previous MDM solution, because once you use Azure Active Directory credentials, you will have MDM policies flowing through, or MAM policies flowing through your mobile devices as well. And so I quickly want to go over some Windows deployment questions that we get. And so, like I said, you have to first upgrade your Windows 10 Pro to Windows 10 Pro Creators Update. So if you're on previous versions, use the in-place upgrade process to come to Windows 10 Creator Update, and then connect to AAD by signing in with your Azure AD credentials or Microsoft 365 credentials. And once the credentials have been signed in, if you set policies in the centralized console, these policies will then flow into your Windows device, and your Windows device is now under management, and this state is called Windows 10 Business. And so the deployment process on the Windows side, if you're a CSP, pretty much looks like this. And so as a CSP, you will purchase your subscriptions, and what you will do is you will set the device policies on the admin console, as we showed you. Then, as far as if you have on-premises resources, you will set up. You will do the necessary steps to make sure you're using hybrid Azure AD Join. So you will set up AAD Connect and do the steps necessary to register your device with AAD. And then once the user signs in with their credentials, from Pro, it elevates into Windows 10 Business. And so making sure that your device has been upgraded to Windows 10 Pro is necessary, but some of the back-end things that you need to take care of is making sure that you've set the policies in place, and if you're using on-premises assets, or if there are on-premises assets that need to be done, then you'll have to follow the steps for enabling AAD Connect and for hybrid Azure AD Join. And so here are some paths to Windows 10 Pro. One of the questions that we get is, what is the path from Windows Home? So like I said, the minimum requirements are Windows 7 Pro or 8 Pro or 8.1 Pro. And so if you're not on a Pro version, you will have to get to a Pro version first. And so these are the steps that you will need to take if you're on Windows 7 Pro. So if you're on Windows 7 Home or Windows 8 Home, you will first need to go from previous version of Windows Home to Windows 10 Home. So you'll go from Home to Home, but come to the Windows 10 version. So if you're Windows 7 Home, 8 Home, or 8.1 Home, you will first come to Windows 10 Home. And then once you come to Windows 10 Home, you will purchase a Pro Pack upgrade. So you will convert from Home to Pro. Right now, the option is to go to the store and purchase per device the Windows 10 Pro Pack. We're working on a solution where partners or CSPs can look into enabling this on behalf of their customers. So stay tuned for that news. But really, the pathway for Home customers is to go from previous versions of Home to Windows 10 Home, and then from Windows 10 Home to do an upgrade to Windows 10 Pro Pack. That upgrade needs to be purchased. It's a separate purchase. It's currently $99 per device in the Microsoft Store. But then once you do that, you will be on Windows 10 Pro, and then you can elevate to Windows 10 Business by signing in. But really, this is the path to Windows 10 Pro for our customers. If you're on previous versions of Pro, then you'll have to do the in-place upgrade where you can choose to keep your files and settings, or you can keep only your files, but you have use the upgrade options, whether it's to USB or DVD or an ISO. Use the in-place upgrade option to go from previous Pro versions to Windows 10 Pro. That is part of your licensing entitlement. You don't have to purchase anything to go from previous Pro versions to Windows 10 Pro. But in order to go from Home to Pro, you will have to do the conversion and purchase to go from Home to Pro. And that is that is not part of your subscription. You'll have to purchase it separately. Then we'll talk about Office deployment as well. One of the capabilities that you have is you can automatically install Office once your device has joined to Azure Active Directory. You can auto install Office. So this is great for new devices or new employees who have to be given new devices. As soon as they sign in with their Azure AD credentials, it will enable the auto install of Office. And so what you get with Office is essentially the latest Office client with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Publisher, Access, OneNote. Teams has to be downloaded separately. It's not part of the auto install package, but it is available to download, so you can download it separately. And what it is not 64-bit Office, and it does not include MSI apps like Project and Visio. Some of the prerequisites that you would do is you uninstall, before you enable this, you would uninstall older versions of Office pre-2016. So if you have Office 2013 or 2010, you would uninstall older versions of Office as well. This is a chart that shows you a path from your current state to what happens when Office is installed. So if your current state is no Office is installed, the system will install Office apps. So this is like a new device where an employee comes in, signs in with their credentials, and the system will install Office apps. If your current state has Office installed via Click to Run all versions, you don't have to take any actions because Click to Run will take care of itself. Office is properly installed and licensed. So what happens after you sign in is, Office is properly installed. So if you have the current state where you're running Office installs via Click to Run, there is no action for you. That is the takeaway. Now, if you have Office installs via MSI, you will have to uninstall all MSI versions of Office because the system will install Office apps once MSI versions are removed. So the big takeaway here is if you have Office installed via MSI, uninstall all MSI versions of Office before, and only after that the system will install Office apps via M365 Business. Now, if you have Office Pro Plus installed via Click to Run, again, you don't have any action. And if you have previously installed Project or Visio apps via Click to Run or MSI, again, there is no action for you. So if you have Project or Visio apps that is installed via Click to Run or MSI, again, there is no actions for you because Office apps will install with no impact to Project or Visio. So really the big takeaway is if you have Office installs via MSI, uninstall all MSI versions of Office. All other areas, whether you have Project or Visio apps, or if you have Office Pro Plus installed via Click to Run, there's no action for you. And here we have a quick illustration of how Office auto deployment works. So very quickly upon activation, an MDM policy is delivered from Intune MDM to the PC, and then the PC invokes the ODT file with the configuration file. So essentially, it's a two-step process. So once Windows 10 Business is activated, Intune delivers the MDM policy because now it's it's under Intune management to the PC. And then once the PC is under management, it invokes the ODT file. So it's really simple. And it's really great because it makes Office auto deployment very simple now. You don't have to, have an image with a package needed. By just enabling a toggle button, you can make sure that the device is automatically infused with Office apps. And so that is the end of our presentation. We have a lot of resources on Microsoft 365 Business. Really, the link for all of our partner resources is aka.ms/partner M365B. So that's aka.ms/partner M365B. My email is ashadi@microsoft.com. Please feel free to send me your feedback or any questions that you have. We hope you're excited about some of the new changes to Microsoft 365 Business. We're very excited about the potential of Microsoft 365 Business to transform our SMB customers. Thank you again for your time today. Have a great day.